Hello guys, this is Dr. Philip Oob here with Steve Curran, who has a CrossFit gym right down the street called CrossFit WCF. Steve is a current patient of mine and he has done really well, so I wanted you guys to hear his story and see what he had to say. He actually referred another patient to me before he actually came to see me himself, and so I think he was testing the waters to make sure I wasn't a crazy person before he came. So Steve, why don't you tell everyone, just start from wherever you want to about what happened, why you're here, what you've done.
Okay, so I'm a CrossFit coach, and I also CrossFit at least 3-4 times a week, and I'm over 50, and so aches and pains are kind of normal, but probably in the last year had more of my share of aches and pains than was normal, I thought, and particularly my hip, my right hip, had been bothering me for quite a while. And
How long's quite a while?
over 6 months, probably.
Okay.
And so I'd gone to some therapeutic, like massaging. There's a place in town that does very, very deep tissue, and it worked. It really got rid of a lot of the pain, but it kept coming back. And so they would get rid of it, it would come back, I'd get rid of it, and so I kept going back, and finally the doc there said, let's get an x-ray, there's maybe something going on, and we did, and the x-ray came back with, the diagnosis was hip sockets were a little shallow, and so that I was prone to probably arthritis, and one side was getting a little worse than the other. And so he said, well, this is kind of one of those things where we can work on it as we go, and you just kind of maintain with foam rolling and lacrosse ball and massage and to keep the pain away. And so I've been doing that, and then one day I happened to be in the pharmacy here, and I was asking about supplements, and we were just talking, and one of the young ladies out there mentioned that you had a practice here, and she gave me one of your little 5x7 or so cards. And so I was looking at that, and I had never heard of functional medicine, and on the little card it mentioned stem cell and platelets for joint regeneration, and so that piqued my interest, and so I went back to the office and got online.
A little light bulb went on?
Yeah, I got on there and I started looking at your website, and I was like, ooh, I've never really heard of this. I mean, I'd heard of platelets, but I didn't really know what it was all about. I didn't know how successful it was, and so I started digging a little bit, and was talking at the gym with another of my clients and mentioned your practice to him, and he'd heard of all this stuff, and so he made an appointment before I did. And when he came back, he was like, yeah, and there's this other stuff that can help with either age-related or just body function improvement. And so he told me about the sermorelin, and so I researched into that because I had been researching growth hormone and effects, benefits, detriment, all this types of stuff, and I love to research things.
I see that.
Part of my strength and conditioning background. So I really dug in, and I decided to finally make an appointment with you. And so I really was coming in here to see what you might be able to do about the hip pain, maybe platelets, maybe stem cell. I had no idea about any of it, and so I came in, and I was just kind of surprised at the length of time that you guys spent with me. Certainly not used to spending 30 minutes to an hour talking with a doctor one-on-one about conditions, and then you took a blood test, which I get one of those usually every year, and I remember you saying, it's not really worth drawing stem cells or platelets if your body's not really healthy, so let's do the blood test and see kind of where you're at. And I was a little dismayed when the results came back, embarrassed too, because I'm a trainer and I know better, and I knew I hadn't been eating well, and the results came back with markers that were showing up for autoimmune type conditions and inflammation, and that was like light bulb moment, because I knew I always reacted really well to things like ibuprofen and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, but I mean really well, and so that was kind of it corroborated what I'd kind of known for a while about inflammation, and so then I got the infusion of the vitamins, the Myers vitamin infusion and the glutathione, and it was really kind of interesting to me because I hadn't gotten the blood results back that next day. Like, we did it in the afternoon, I forgot what day it was, But the next day that I had to go work out in the morning, I got up and I just felt great. I mean, the aches and pains weren't there, and I got to the gym and I worked out with my 530 group because it was just a body weight thing, a lot of squatting, and usually that's where I noticed the hip, and it just wasn't nearly as painful. And so I did that workout, and then my 630 group came in. There was only one guy, and I didn't want him to have to work out by himself. And so I worked out with him at 6:30 too. I felt so great. I did like 1.5 workouts that day, which I've never done. And
Never done?
No, never done.
Okay.
I never worked out twice like that. And so I was just floored. Now, did that effect wore off after a while? And so I'm attributing it to maybe the glutathione, maybe the vitamins, maybe the combination. I'm not sure. But
had you started the Sermorelin by this point?
Nope, not yet. And so it was. So at that point, it was very shortly after that the blood results came back. And so when we talked about what I needed to do, it was drastically reduce the inflammation in my body, and we were going to do that through diet. And then we also talked about the Sermorelin, and so in combination with diet and trying to help improve the growth hormone output in my body because I was low, to try to get all these factors in place so that maybe we can look at stem cell. I remember you telling me that it's quite possible that, you know, if we eat right and do the things to get everything healthy, that the hip pain may actually end up going away on its own. I think I recall you saying when you looked at the x-ray report that while there is something there, it didn't look bad enough from the x-ray, the radiologist's report to give that kind of an indication of pain. And so fast forward to now, I had started Sermorelin. I'm a little 5 weeks into it, and eating a very clean diet.
What kind of diet are you following, Steve? What have we
Paleo,
gravitated?
very strict paleo.
Why don't you explain real quick what kind
Sure.
of paleo is? Because I think it's such a
everybody's
overused
heard,
term
sure.
that, like you've said to me, paleo muffins,
Right.
not quite something cavemen were able to make
Right.
in the Paleolithic area.
So in the paleo, the idea of paleo is that basically if we go back to our Neanderthal and our Paleolithic roots, right? The only things that were really readily available were meat, right? People hunted, they gathered, there was not an agrarian society, so we didn't grow grains in mass quantities and eat them. In fact, I'd venture to say that they may have seen the deer and the other animals eating the grass, and I imagine they tried it, and this is awful.
Why are they eating?
Right.
That tastes terrible.
So other than in a starvation mode where there's no fruits, there's no vegetables, anything growing that they could find and eat, they would eat maybe the grains in very small quantities, right, and then choke it down. So essentially, it's a good amount of protein, and I can go in a little bit about what I determine as a good amount of protein, but you're eating meats for your main protein source, lots and lots of vegetables and fruits, and the non-starchy vegetables, so the greens, the cauliflower, sweet potatoes, staying away from the typically starchy foods like corn, potatoes, things of that nature. And so lots of vegetables, some fruit, not a ton of fruit, and then some nuts and seeds, no peanuts, so legumes are out because of their inflammatory effect. I forgot what the chemical is in the legumes.
Phytic acid.
Yeah, I've forgotten exactly what it was, but there is something in the legumes that for people particularly that are sensitive to inflammation, legumes can actually cause inflammation. So
let me pause you for a sec, Steve, because a lot of people don't know the difference between a peanut and the other nuts. Although peanut ends in nut, it's actually not technically a nut.
Right.
Steve called it correctly, it's a legume. And if you think about it, peanuts grow underground just like beans and things do. So the other nuts always grow in trees, pecan trees, and I've never seen a walnut tree, but those all grow on trees.
Yeah.
And so even though they look like a nut and they're in a shell and all that, they're actually not really a nut. And so in the autoimmune protocol and paleo diets or food plans, those are kind of restricted. And if you really think about a caveman walking out and trying to find peanut plants and digging through the ground in order to get just a few nuts, it's hard enough for Americans just to crack a shell these days, much less dig it out of the ground and then crack a shell. We're used to just piling in handfuls, salted and roasted. And our caveman ancestors definitely couldn't do that.
Sure.
So I'm sorry to pause you,
That's
Steve.
okay, no problem. And so the other thing that restrictive is no dairy. You know, as infants, if we're breastfed, we drink mother's milk, but no other animal that I know of in the animal kingdom drinks another animal's milk, right? And so
it's kind of weird.
So early on, it's fine. We need the colostrum, we need the protein and the calcium from cow's milk or mother's milk. But at a certain age, we lose that necessity. We can get all those things from other food sources. So as you recommended to immediately get a book, The Autoimmune Solution by Dr. Meyer. And so I started reading it, and in it was all the explanations about why you want to eliminate dairy, why you want to eliminate, this is the big one, no gluten. So no grain products.
How do you
basically.
feel about that, Steve?
That was the hardest one. I mean, although I love cheese and I love milk and whey for my workouts, the gluten-free, I know I must be sensitive to it because as soon as I started this protocol, getting off the gluten, getting off the dairy, I know it's got to be the wheat and the gluten because I feel amazing.
Yeah.
The amount of energy that I have during the day, I'm not sluggish. I just have energy to go. And the nice side effect of all of this is fat loss. As soon as I got off the sugars,
trimmed down impressively.
The processed sugars, that's the other one. There's no processed sugars in this food plan. It's like I was starting to say, is meat for your main protein source. Lots and lots of veggies, some fruit, some nuts and seeds, no sugars, and very little, if any, starches. You try to maintain a very low starch diet, so no rice, no other grains really, or very, very small amounts of those. I'm now down, I said I'm about 5 or so weeks into this, I'm down almost 2.5% body fat, which hasn't translated to a lot of weight. When you think about it, fat doesn't weigh that much, right? Compared to muscle, and I'm working out harder because I feel better, and so I think I've actually added a little muscle mass, and so the balance of that is I look on the scale and it just doesn't show me a lot, but I have a body fat measuring scale, and I'm not sure how accurate it is in terms of absolute value, but the relative drop, I can see that as it goes down. So yeah, and I can tell
you're
by
looking good, Steve.
Thank you. I can tell by how my pants fit and the belt tightens.
Yeah, the six pack, that also helps. You know that you've lost some fat.
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually see the muscle down there now. I knew it was there all along, but I can actually see it now. We're starting to. So that's a nice side benefit. But even if you weren't doing it for the weight loss or the fat loss, just the overall effect of how I feel, that's immeasurable, because the aches and pains have started to slowly go away, and by and large I can tell a huge difference in the amount of pain in the hip. It's still there, but if we're doing the 1 to 10 scale like they always have you do, I would say before, on some days, just trying to squat down as an 8, I mean, it would spike.
That bad?
Yeah, it would spike. Now, it's dull. I can do things that will aggravate it, but it doesn't shoot to an 8, hardly at all.
Was it waking you up in the middle of the night before?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. If I rolled over or if I laid a certain way, it just is an ache, kind of almost like I've had nerve root pain before, like sciatica, which is horrible because there's not a position you can get to, and that's kind of how this was. There's not a good position when your hip's hurting to lay where it doesn't hurt. I mean, even think, why would it hurt when you're laying there, right? But it did, and so now I'm sleeping through the night, which is a big benefit in and of itself, because that's when your body's trying to repair itself. And so
that's incredible. So you've been on this for, you said, 5 or 6 weeks?
5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks.
And so when's the last time you remember waking up in the middle of the night with hip pain? That's a good sign.
I think there was one night that after a really particularly heavy low body workout that it was a little achy, but it woke me up and I went back to sleep. It wasn't like it kept me up all night. So when it, I say that it's been a couple weeks ago, but other than that, I can distinctly remember the first night I slept all the way through the night and went, wow, I didn't wake up last night.
That's what that feels like.
Yeah, and I remember I told you guys that I think I sent something to you via email or text maybe, and it was just like, that blew my mind. It really did. And so, this whole diet thing, we've gone on paleo diets at our gym before as a challenge. We typically do a challenge every year to try to get people introduced to it, and we reward them and all this stuff. And I've done it before, and I've lost body fat, but it was sort of I like my carbs,
Don't we all?
But you know what? It's like, now that I have an actual, look, this is the real deal, right? The blood doesn't lie. I can try to fake myself out and drink more coffee for energy or all that, which isn't really good. This is like, I've already cut down the caffeine down to like just a couple cups a day from a whole lot, and yet my energy level's still up. So there's something to be said about the way that we eat, and and I'm learning a whole lot as we go. This whole journey has been reading and studying and kind of things that I've known from my CrossFit training and my strength and conditioning training, but it's always been, no, I won't say always, it's a lot of the time it's been do as I say, not as I do, and now I'm having to pay the piper, as it were, and really walk the walk, talk the talk, and so, but it's been good so far.
Good.
It really has.
So let me summarize real quick, guys. I think there's more I want to ask Steve about, but I just want to reiterate the power of his story. He came to see me for a stem cell procedure, which he knows I do and I love doing, for possible arthritis of the hip, and we didn't do any of that. All he did was change his diet, and yes, we added Sermorel, and I think that was an added plus, but not necessarily needed. We did the vitamin infusion. That was an extra plus, but not necessarily needed. Everything he's been talking about was mostly with food. He changed his meal plan, and now he's not having chronic pain. That's incredible. That's incredible. And so I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't do anything special, right? We pointed out the diet. We pointed out the labs. And Steve's done all the hard work himself. I've hardly done anything. So props to Steve for doing that. And it's truly a remarkable story. And really, he just needed someone to beat him over the head. And I am gladly available to beat you over the head whenever you need a good talking to.